Hey everyone! Bison are massive, powerful animals whose diet is made up entirely of plants. Despite their size and strength, these majestic creatures are absolutely stunning to behold. They share a strong resemblance to European wisents, which is why people often confuse the two. In fact, bison and wisents can interbreed, and their offspring are known as Zoobrobisons. At first glance, these giants may seem intimidating, but their very presence commands not just fear, but also deep respect, for their greatness, fearlessness, and calm nature. And when it comes to size, the bison stands as one of the largest herbivores among hoofed animals on the planet. The origins of bison. Bison belong to the order of even-toed ungulates, the family of bovids, and of course, their own distinct genus and species. Like all mammals, they are chordates, but what truly makes them fascinating is their deep history. These majestic giants have roamed our planet for around 5 million years, as proven by fossil evidence uncovered by scientists. Experts believe that during the Pliocene epoch, bison first appeared across parts of what is now modern-day Europe. By the Pleistocene epoch, they had spread widely across Europe, and eventually made their way into North America. But how did they cross the ocean? Around 650,000 years ago, there existed the so-called Beringian land bridge, a natural connection between Asia and North America. It was here that an early subspecies of bison emerged in southern Beringia. Back then, these prehistoric bison were much larger than the ones we know today. Over time, as climates and habitats shifted, they adapted to survive. This long evolutionary journey gradually reduced their body size, nearly cutting it in half compared to their ancient ancestors. Bison in the Ice Age. During the Ice Age, which began roughly 100,000 years ago, European steppe bison crossed into North America, settling in the vast tundras and grasslands of Beringia. These open landscapes offered everything they needed: plenty of food, space, and the right conditions for their herds to thrive. At that time, their numbers were staggering. Bison herds outnumbered mammoths, reindeer, musk oxen, and nearly every other large herbivore of the Ice Age world. Fun fact, about 14,000 years ago, Earth's climate began to shift dramatically. As global temperatures rose, sea levels climbed higher and higher, until the Beringian land bridge disappeared beneath the ocean. With it, the entire ecosystem that bison depended on collapsed. In Europe, this change gave rise to a new animal, the wisent, or European bison, descended directly from the mighty steppe bison. Unlike their ancestors of the open plains, wisents adapted to life in dense broadleaf forests, where they still live today. Meanwhile, across the American continent, two new forms of bison emerged, the plains bison and the wood bison. These species were shaped by a long process of mixing between ancient steppe bison and the so-called antique bison. By the 16th century, bison dominated North America. Their range stretched from the Mississippi River all the way to the Rocky Mountains, and from the frozen lands of Alaska down into the northern edges of Mexico. Their population at the time? An estimated 600,000 animals roaming freely across the continent. Appearance and features. When it comes to size, bison are truly giants. Adult males can stand nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder and measure up to 3 meters in body length. Their weight is just as impressive. Most bulls tip the scales at close to a ton, with some even heavier. Females, however, are noticeably smaller and lighter, usually weighing no more than 700 kilograms, almost half the size of the males. Bison have an unmistakably powerful look. Their massive head sits on a thick, muscular neck, crowned with sharp, curved horns that bend inward at the tips. Their small ears are barely visible beneath the long fur, while their large, round, dark eyes are set wide apart, giving them a sharp yet calm gaze. The high, broad forehead adds even more to their imposing appearance. Fun fact, bison fur isn't uniform. On the head, neck, chest, and forelegs, the hair is longer, denser, and darker, creating a kind of mane that makes the animal look even more intimidating. This fearsome impression is heightened by the large muscular hump rising where the neck meets the back. In contrast, the hindquarters are lighter, covered with shorter and paler fur. Their legs, though relatively short, are strong and muscular, built for endurance. The tail is small, ending with a tuft of dark hair. Despite their bulky build, bison have an excellent sense of hearing and smell, making them extremely alert to danger. The typical coat color ranges from dark brown to dark gray, with lighter variations across the body. Usually, the front half of the body is much darker than the back. And here's another striking detail: bison sport a thick mop of hair on their heads, almost like a natural shaggy cap. Where do bison live? A few centuries ago, the bison population numbered as many as 60 million, and these massive animals roamed almost everywhere across the continent. Today, however, their range has drastically shrunk to limited areas in North America. The sharp decline in numbers was caused by overhunting, leaving only small, isolated populations, mainly within parts of Missouri and several other protected regions. In the past, bison followed a nomadic lifestyle dictated by the seasons. During cold winters, herds migrated south, and as soon as warmer weather returned, they made their way back north to their original grazing grounds. Nowadays, these great migrations are no longer possible, as farmland and human settlements have cut off their natural routes. Modern bison prefer areas rich in lush green vegetation, thriving in river valleys, lochshores, and deciduous forests. They also adapt well to other habitats, provided there is enough food available. Today, wild bison can be found around Lake Athabasca, around Great Slave Lake, in northwestern Missouri, within forest regions and in the basins of the Buffalo River, Peace River, and Birch River. Bison can live both in woodlands and open grassland ecosystems. In southern Canada, some populations prefer open plains and lowlands, while farther north, others favor dense forest habitats. Fun fact: New York City actually stands on land that, according to legend, was formed by the sheer mass of bison carcasses. Thousands of animals once drowned while attempting to cross the Hudson Strait, and their remains eventually built up the ground where the city now sits. It's almost impossible to imagine just how many bison perished in that single event. What do bison eat? Bison are strictly herbivorous hoofed mammals, consuming nearly 30 kilograms, about 66 pounds, of vegetation per day. Their diet includes lichens, moss, grasses, herbs, young shoots of shrubs, twigs, leaves of various plants. Bison remain comfortable even in harsh winters, enduring temperatures as low as -25 degrees Celsius -13 degrees Fahrenheit, while feeding on whatever vegetation they can find in such extreme conditions. Thanks to their powerful legs, they are able to dig for food beneath snow layers up to 1 meter deep or more. To break through dense snow and ice, they often use their massive foreheads, which is why many bison have bald patches where fur no longer grows. Like all large mammals, bison require daily access to water. During winter, when rivers and lakes are frozen, they may suffer from dehydration. Typically, bison graze early in the morning or late in the evening, avoiding the heat of the day. Besides the cooler temperatures, shade also provides protection and comfort. When food becomes scarce, entire herds set off in search of new pastures rich in vegetation. Their migration routes almost always follow the presence of water sources, and bison are capable of covering long distances to reach them. Once the warm season returns and vegetation regrows, the herds often return to their original grazing grounds. A shortage of food, especially during winter, has a direct impact on the quality of their thick fur. Prolonged frosts and poor nutrition can severely weaken certain individuals, reducing their chances of survival. Character and way of life. Bison are highly social animals, preferring to live in large herds. Just a few centuries ago, some herds numbered up to 20,000 individuals. At the head of each herd stood a strong and experienced bull, although managing such massive numbers was never an easy task. In most cases, several dominant males shared the responsibility of leading and protecting the group. Smaller groups could also form, consisting of females with their calves and one or two males. The primary role of a bull is to protect the herd from predators and intruders. Their hearing is so acute that they can detect approaching danger from as far as 3 kilometers, nearly 2 miles, away. Despite their enormous size, bison are not clumsy at all. In fact, they are fast and surprisingly agile, capable of reaching speeds of up to 50 km per hour, 30 miles per hour, and leaping obstacles as high as 2 meters, 6.5 feet. There were attempts to domesticate bison in North America, but people soon abandoned the idea. These animals are far too wild and independent by nature. Interestingly, bison are also excellent swimmers, able to cross wide rivers with ease. Normally, when undisturbed, they behave calmly and peacefully. But in the face of real danger, a charging bison is like a relentless force of nature, furious, unstoppable, and merciless. There are documented cases of bison knocking down weaker herd members in order to escape predators. This brutal instinct served an important role. It ensured that the herd was free of sick or weak individuals that could endanger the survival of the whole group. Bison are also remarkably intelligent in assessing threats. If a bull encounters a stronger opponent and senses defeat, it will retreat rather than risk fatal injury. Magnifying glass tilted right. Fun fact: bison communicate with each other through a wide range of unique sounds, from deep grunts to snorts and bellows. How long do bison live? In the wild, and even on North American ranches, bison typically live 20 to 25 years. Reproduction and offspring. The mating season in bison is marked by the fact that a single bull may mate with several females, forming what could be described as his harem. This period begins in May and lasts until mid-autumn. During this time, even solitary bulls actively search for females. When large herds gather, males engage in fierce battles for the right to mate, clashing head-to-head in dramatic duels. Such encounters can sometimes result in the death of weaker individuals. Naturally, the females prefer the strongest males, the winners of these contests. During the rut, bulls also produce deep, thunderous roars, a sound so powerful it can be heard from over 6 kilometers, nearly 4 miles, away. Once mating has occurred, the female carries her calf for about 9.5 months before giving birth. Typically, a cow delivers a single calf, though twins are possible. Shortly before giving birth, the female often seeks out a quiet and safe spot, distancing herself from the herd. In some cases, however, calves are born right within the group if no secluded place can be found. What makes bison remarkable is their communal care for newborns. The moment a calf is born, within just a few hours it is able to stand and walk, instinctively following its mother. For the first year of life, calves rely on their mother's rich, high-calorie milk, which allows them to grow quickly, becoming strong and active. Playful calves are full of energy, running and jumping, but this is also the period when they are most vulnerable to predators, especially if adults are distracted. By the age of 3 to 5 years, young bison reach sexual maturity. In the wild, their average lifespan can extend up to 25 years. Natural enemies of bison. Thanks to their sheer size and power, adult bison have few natural predators. The greatest threat comes from wolves, who hunt in packs. Even then, wolves typically target calves, the weak, or the sick, as a healthy adult bison is more than capable of defending itself. Sometimes even an entire pack cannot bring one down. But by far the greatest threat to bison has always been humans. For centuries, indigenous peoples depended on bison for survival, using virtually every part of the animal. The tongue and the hump were considered delicacies, the latter prized for its rich fat content. Humps were preserved as food for the harsh winters. Bison hides were turned into clothing and footwear, while thicker parts were used for soles and protective coverings. Skins also served as materials for shelters. From bison hair, ropes were woven, bones became tools, weapons, and utensils, and even dried dung was used as fuel for fire. Hooves were boiled down to make adhesives. In short, every part of the animal was used, nothing was wasted. Important note, until around 1840, human hunting did not drastically impact bison populations. It was only later, with mass slaughter and westward expansion, that their numbers collapsed. Population and conservation status. The number of bison declined to catastrophic levels literally over the past couple of centuries. Today, no more than 35,000 individuals live in the wild. In recent years, bison have begun to be actively bred on private farms. Experts estimate that about 5,000 animals are kept in captivity. Nowadays, bison are listed as endangered animals, standing on the brink of complete extinction. On special farms, up to 500,000 bison are raised for industrial purposes. Until 1840, up to 60 million of these ungulates roamed the wild, but soon after, intensive hunting began. The slaughter reached especially horrifying proportions a quarter of a century later, when the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad began. To attract passengers, the founders offered unique journeys that generated huge profits. As trains moved along the railroad, passengers were allowed to shoot at peacefully grazing bison. As a result, countless dead and dying animals were left behind along the tracks. Railroad workers also killed bison for meat to feed the crews. At the time, bison were so numerous that only their tongues were cut out, while the massive bodies were left to rot. Interesting fact. By 1865, there were around 2 million bison hunters. The most famous was Buffalo Bill, who killed more than 4,000 bison. Bison conservation. Since these animals were on the verge of extinction, they were included in the International Red Book. It was not until 1905 that the U.S. government realized the species could disappear from the face of the earth forever. To stop the further decline of bison populations, the American Bison Society was founded. As a result, reserves were established in Montana, Oklahoma, and the Dakotas. These territories were placed under the protection of local authorities. The results of these efforts came quickly. Within 5 years, the bison population nearly doubled. Another 10 years later, their numbers reached 9,000. Canada also made significant contributions, focusing on halting the destruction of bison. In 1915, Wood Buffalo National Park was created with the goal of preserving and increasing the population of wood bison. Thanks to such efforts, the total number of bison today has reached about 35,000 individuals. Here's the video. If you liked it, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. See you next time.